Margaret Hirsch came onto my radar on this very podcast. While interviewing Ethel Andrews, she mentioned Margaret as one of the people that inspires her in the business world. I immediately started to Google Margaret and saw that she has a huge social media presence, that she embraces the digital space for her personal and her business brand. Margaret is an executive director of the Hirsch Group, a philanthropist and women's empowerment advocate, and has won numerous business accolades. Margaret, welcome and thank you for the generosity of your time on the Strategy Maker podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm hoping we can inspire so many other people to know that there is abundance out there, that South Africa is a land of wealth and opportunity, that there's never been a better time to start a business and run a business than now. And, you know, people who are starting now, the people who are going to be really successful in the future. It's like the old story, when you plant a tree, or you should have planted it 20 years ago, but if you didn't, today is the day. And I think that's what it is with business as well. People always put it off, you know, I put it off, I'm too young, I haven't had my kids, I haven't got married, I haven't paid for my house, I haven't done this. And by the time you turn around, I mean, I'm 72 now, can you believe it? And I just feel like it was yesterday that I was getting married and having children and things like that. It goes too quickly. One day you turn around, you look back on your life and you say, oh my goodness, why didn't I take those opportunities that God gave me? Because every day God gives you these opportunities that come past you. I just imagine them all coming past me, and you've got to grab onto them. So when I go into the schools, I take 100 Rand note, and I do the very rural schools. I love it. I love those children. They're so precious and so unspoiled. And I say, who wants this 100 Rand? And they all want the 100 Rand, but only one out of the 1,000 that are there will get up and take it. And that's how we are. We've got to just take every opportunity as it comes our way. Because if you don't take the opportunity, God doesn't keep giving you them. He says, well, you know, this person's not interested. Let me give this opportunity to somebody else. So that's why it's so important to take those opportunities. Yeah.
And that's exactly where I want us to get to. But I want to start at the very beginning. You experienced your fair share of hardship during your childhood. Tell us about little Margaret and her upbringing.
Well, everything was idyllic in my life, absolutely idyllic. We lived in a beautiful home. We had everything we wanted. And then one day my father just dropped dead, and he was only 32 years old. And my mother, who had been a very spoiled adopted child, who had married the boy next door, never had to do a thing for herself, was thrown into a world where she couldn't cope. And I think this is why I work with women empowerment so much, because every woman at some stage in her life will be just have the rug pulled from underneath her. She'll fall flat on her back. She won't know which way is up. And how do you, as a woman, just you've got to, first of all, she had to deal with her grief. Her grief was just huge. She had to look after 2 children, and she had no skills, she had no money, she had nothing, you know, no way of looking forward. She just thought, well, what am I going to do now, you know? And there was nobody, you know, people were giving her advice. And of course, the first person who gave her advice took the little bit of money that she got from my father's insurance policy. That was gone in 2 seconds flat. Somebody whipped that from her. So there she was in a world with 2 children, no skills, no money, and having to go forward and saying, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to do this? And this is why I work with women, because I say, you never know when this is going to happen. You know, I've just had one of my tenants now, I went to see her, and she said, Margaret, you will not believe, my husband of 20 years has just run off with a floozy and left me. And here I am, I'm in this flat. I don't have a job, I don't have any money, and he's left me. So a lot of women experience this, and that's where I come in, because I teach women to be resilient, but not when it happens, to be prepared. And I literally go into the schools and I talk to the girls in the schools, and I say to the girls, you have to be financially independent. If you're a financially independent woman, you have the freedom to choose. You don't have to stay with a man who's giving you a clip. We can stop gender-based violence overnight if women are financially independent. Why does women stay? Because they're financially dependent on that man, and they have to put up with the clips, you know. So my goal is to get every woman financially independent. Now, how do you do that? Well, you know, as I said to you, this is a land of wealth and abundance. We live in a country where nothing is easier than starting a business in South Africa. You can start a business in a heartbeat. And you can make that business successful, but you have to work. And this is where you heard the stats. So 97% of all businesses that open this year will fail in 3 years. And 97% of businesses that opened 3 years ago will fail this year. Well, the very simple reason is because of the formula that is handed out. Because as soon as you want to start a business, what do people come in? Where's your funding? Let me give you funding. Let me fund you. So you end up being able to borrow huge amounts of money, which you have no way of paying back because you don't know if your business is going to be successful.
True.
Say if your business is successful, now you've borrowed this money, your business is successful, you're making money. But what's the first thing you've got to do? You've got to take the money you're earning and pay back the person you borrowed from. So where does that leave you? Well, you're working hard, you're making money, but you haven't got any. And you think, well, what am I doing this for? And that's where the wheels fall off. So what I do is I start people in businesses with no money. We started with no money. And we start building slowly. You see the things on the movies. Everybody goes to get rich overnight. And they all think they're going to get rich overnight. But of course, there's no such thing. I mean, it's like people who tell you they win the lotto. You know, the people who win it just lose it anyway in 2 years. So the correct way to do it is decide what you want and work backwards from there. So I'll give you, for instance, when I bring my staff up to Joburg, I bring people mostly from Durban, because there's a lot of people in Durban and not that many jobs, and there's a lot of jobs in Joburg, and the people are very spoiled. So I bring my staff from Durban, and I say to them, when they come up, they come on the bus, they usually have a checkers bag, and in there they've got 2 shirts and a pair of shoes, and that's all they've got between them and starvation. I meet them at the bus, and I take them, and I have a safe house where I put them up for 3 months till they get on their feet. And I say to them, what do you want? And the first thing they always want is a motor car. I want this motor car. And I say, that's absolutely fine. What kind of car do you want? Well, I don't know. Well, if you don't know what you want, you're never going to get it. That's how life works. But you've got to be specific. And the more specific you can be, the quicker you'll get it. So whatever you want, be specific. So I make them get a picture of the car they want. And it's just take something, like the last one I did, he wanted a blue Golf GTI, mag wheels, black leather seat. You know, he
specific.
He got it. So what we did then is we let him experience it. So we found the blue Golf GTR with the mag wheels, and we made him sit in it, and we let him drive around the parking lot. And you know, within 6 months he had that car. And it just, you know, if you focus on one thing, if you want I want a house, I want furniture, and I want a wife, and I want this, you wouldn't have got anything. Focus on one thing, and within 6 months he had that car. And then you focus on the next thing. Well, what do you want next? I want to be able to buy my own home. Well, that's fine. And then you work backwards. So like with a car, what was the thing you'd have to do before you got the car? Well, I'd have to sort out the finance. Well, before you sort the finance, how much money would you have to earn a month to be able to sort out that finance? To earn that much money, how much would you have to do? But by the way, have you got a license? No. Well, the next thing you have to do is get a license. And the thing you have to do before that is get your learners. So what you're going to do today, you're going to go out and get your learners, and then you're going to work towards your license, and you're going to go up those steps until you get
Yeah.
So whatever you want in life, if you put it out there and you focus on it, you'll get it. It says in the Bible, what you see it in your mind, you can hold in your hand. And it is so true. And that's what my mantra has been. And that's what I do. And that's why I have everything today. My business is doing over 3 billion turnover. I employ 2,500 people. I wanted to be able to provide jobs for people. I want to be able to teach those people. And that's what makes Hirsch so different, is we don't just take a person and give them a job. This is your job, just do this and go home. We say, we bring you here to grow you to be the best you can be. And what we do is, and I always give an example with my daughter when she was in matric. She was really good at English and really bad at maths. So what most people do is give her extra maths lessons. I didn't. I gave her extra English lessons, and she got an A for English. She'd never be good at maths, no matter how many maths lessons she got. But she's really good at English. And today, as you know, she's a journalist, she's a speaker, she's a brand manager. She's got, and she worked on her strength. And that's what we do at Hirsch, is we work on people's strengths. So often you think, this is my weakness, I'll work on that. Don't do that. Work on your strengths. What are you good at? What do you love? And if you do what you love, as I do, for me, it's not working. So that's what I do every single day. And I help people to grow their businesses. And I've had amazing successes. I've had wonderful successes with people who've grown amazing businesses from nothing.
That's amazing. Amazing story. But I want to tap back into your childhood. Were there a specific moment while living with your mom, still in the house, that you realized these are my specific strengths? Or was there a trigger that said, I want to move in that direction and not that direction?
Yeah, it was. I mean, we were so poor. We lived in the back room of a relative's house. We lived literally in the servants' quarters. And, the person whose house we lived in was not a nice person. So they were really talked down to us. And we were poor as church. My mother worked in an inn in Leicester and Durban for 30 Rand a month as an invoice typist. And we had to survive on 30 Rand a month. Even in those days, it wasn't a lot to survive on, let me tell you. And, my mother battled to cope with her grief. So I, at 10, was heading a child-headed household. I was doing everything because my mother was she would just go to work and bring 30 Rand home, and that was it. So I remember one day sitting, the first time I taught myself to manifest, I was 12 years old, and we had a house in Rosetta Road. We lived in the back room, and I was sitting on the front step, and it was one of those with the red veranda with the steps going down. And I was sitting on a step, and all my friends were going to a session at a local church on the Saturday night, and I didn't have any clothes to wear. And I had gathered some fabric, and with my grandmother's sewing machine, I'd made myself a dress, but the fabric was so thin that you could see through it. So I needed a petticoat, and I was sitting there and I was thinking about the petticoat that I really needed for this dress. And with that, a car drove by, and a lady threw out a black plastic bag of old clothes. And she said, "You look like a deserving household. Here's some old clothes of mine that you can have." And in the bag of old clothes was exactly the petticoat that I needed. And I realized then that it's possible to manifest what you want into your life. If you focus on it and you really go after it, it will come. No matter, I mean, there was no hope of buying that petticoat, but I got it. And that was this time that I started to think, oh my goodness, we don't have to be poor like this. I don't have to stay poor my whole life. I have a choice. I can stay poor like this, or I can change. But if I change, I have to go against all the things that I've been taught. My people thought it was virtuous to be poor. They thought the poorer you were, the better you were. It was rude to be rich. Look at her. She's just a show off. She's so full of herself. And as Oprah says, I'm so full of myself that it's overflowing, So all the things I had been taught as a child growing up, and I was brought up in a strict Baptist church, but strict Baptist home. All the things I had been taught, that it was virtuous to be poor, that this is the way you're going to stay, be grateful for a little. I realized that that's not so, and that I could have a lot and I could be wealthy, but how would I do this? Well, the first thing I had to do is finish school. So I focused on my schoolwork, and although I did extremely well, I mean, there was no hope of us, anybody going to university. So I went, and luckily a man came to the school, and he said to the principal of the school, "Have you got a child who's poor, but who's clever? Because I need a clever person to work for me, but a poor person who's got to work really hard. So we've got just the person for you." So my name was Margaret Smith. In those days, she said, "We've got Maggie Smith, and she will come and she will work for you." So I finished school on the Friday, and I started work for a lawyer in Pietermaritzburg on Monday. And I was a shorthand typist. I learned shorthand typing at school because my mother said, "You're no good, you're learning all these fancy things. You're never going to go to university. Just be a typist." In those days, I remember this a long time ago, you were either a nurse, a typist, or you were a teacher. That was, if you're a woman, that was the choice. I mean,
those were the choices, yes.
So I became a shorthand typist, and I was a shorthand typist, and I took dictation, and I typed my letters, and I was as happy as a little sandboy. And then the second realization came. If I stay in Pietermaritzburg, well, let me go back. In my matric year, we were 12 girls. 8 got married the first year out of school. We were poor, so they married us off, so they didn't have to feed us anymore. So I was engaged. And my mother said to me, "Oh, you're so lucky. Your fiance works the railways. You're going to have such a good pension." And that was I just saw my whole life flashing me as a pensioner at the railway cottage. So I just thought, no, I'm not going to do this. So I saved up. And I still remember it was 138 Rand, and I paid to get on the Pendennis Castle. And it took me 3 weeks to get from Durban to London, well, to England. We ducked at Dover and Southampton. And then I went to London, not knowing a soul, not knowing anybody, not having a job. And it's such a small world. My best friend today, Glenda, we both worked for the New Type Secretarial Bureau in London at the same time, and we didn't even know each other. We met up all the years later. So yeah. So you decide you're going to change your life. It doesn't just happen. And there's that moment where you say, "I don't want this anymore. There is more, and I can have it."
You need that trigger to move forward, but obviously you need the determination to execute the decision. Otherwise, you will just fall back on but this is so convenient. I've got a fiance and there is a future.
Yes.
So, okay, now I want to move over to obviously the whole involvement around putting up the Hirsch group and where you started. So you guys are 43 years this year.
Yeah, so I was in London. I was 20 years old, and I told my mother I was engaged to a Chinese man, and I was going to marry him. And she just said, "No, you are not. You're coming home." And to this day, I can't believe that, we were so taught to listen to our parents that I never thought to say, "No, this is my life. That's what I want to do." And if you read Mae Musk's book, and if you haven't read the book by Mae Musk, Elon Musk. Her father said to her, "You will marry this man who she didn't love." But in those days, we listened to our parents. If her father said, "Marry this man," she married him. My mother said, "You're not marrying a Chinese person, come back home." And I came back home. I mean, it was just the most bizarre thing. And that's where I met Alan. And it definitely was love at first sight. I saw him across a crowded room. I saw him, and that was it straight away. He didn't know what hit him. And it was a cross-cultural marriage. My parents didn't want me to marry him. His parents didn't want him to marry me. So he got sent to Israel to find a nice Jewish wife, which thank God he came back without. And we were married. And my parents would not sign for me. So I had to wait till I was 21. So I could sign for myself to get married. So we married, and we'd had no backing. We had no backing of our parents. We had no backing of anybody, because in those days it was not a done thing. So we married, and we were married for 5 years. And when my husband was still an apprentice when I married him, he earned 25 Rand a week. So I definitely didn't marry him for his money. And we were married for 5 years. We built a little house, and then I got pregnant, which I was very happy. Of course, after 5 years of marriage, you are happy when you fall pregnant. And as I told my boss, he said to me 2 words: "You're fired." And so in those days, there was no CCMA. You just had to take your bag and go home, you know. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to support myself and this child, and what's going to happen? And at that same time, I had my baby. I had one baby, and the next year I had another baby. So I had 2 babies in just over 2 years. And at the same time, my husband came back one day and he said, "You know, I'm working for this boss, and he really hasn't got a clue. You know, my husband's a refrigeration mechanic." He said, "I'm fixing the fridges, and the fridge would be old. And I'd say to the guy, sell the woman a new one, and he would give an exorbitant price." And she'd say, "Well, I'm not paying that." And she'd go and buy it at a discount store. And he said, "I'm tired of this." And one day he said to his boss, "Why don't you start discounting?" And his boss said, "That's absolute rubbish. Never going to take off. And if you think you're so clever, why don't you go and start discounting?" So he came home, and there I was sitting, and remember, like a year before, we'd had 2 salaries and no children. No, we had 2 children, no salaries. He said, "I'm going to give up. I'm going to start my own business." So we sort of pooled what we had. I had my severance pay. He got his severance pay. So between us, we had 900 Rand. So he decided that he said, "I don't want to work from my backyard. I want to shop." So we stayed in Glenanel in Durban, and he went up to Mhlongo Drive, which is the first road you come to. And there was a little shop for rent there. And so he went and rented it. So we had 900 Rand to start. So the 300 Rand was our first month's rent. 300 Rand was our deposit for the electricity. And with the other 300 Rand, he put up a sign and bought some invoice books. And that was us. Our money was gone. We started with absolutely nothing. So we got it all ready, and we sat there. And of course, the first day, we thought the people would come flocking, and of course they didn't. And our first day's takings was 11 cents, but it was 11 cents more than we had the day before. So we were quite happy. And but the nice thing about it is some of the people who worked with him at the other place down the road walked up and said, "We actually want to work for you." Well, he said, "That's absolutely fine, but we ain't got no money to pay you." So we realized that straight away, so long as we made enough money that first week to pay the 2 people, we took a clerk and a laborer. If we had to make enough money to pay them, never mind us, we could live on bread and scratch, but we had to pay them. So in that first week, he made enough money just to pay them. And so it started to escalate. And we just did repairs. In fact, we only repaired air conditioners in the beginning. And then obviously, somebody said, "Well, my stove's broken, my fridge is broken," so he would fix those. So he started fixing things. And so the business started to grow, but it didn't grow quickly. I mean, I remember we started in February 1979, and it was, February is very hot in Durban. So we'd phone people and say, before we start phoning and say, could we service your air conditioner? When it was February and it was hot, they all phoned to service the air conditioner. So that was that got us going in the beginning. So you've got to do something, be focused, and do it really well so that you get known for it. And from there you can build. So you build a base. I would say it's like building a building. You put one brick down, you put the other brick down, the foundation right, and then you can build on top of that. So so that's how it all started. And then how did we start selling? Well, the lady's fridge would be broken, and he would just say, she'd say, "Can't you get me a new fridge?" So he would literally go in those days to Game, because Game started the same year as we did, to buy a fridge, and then put a 10% on and give it to her. And that's how we started, because nobody will supply you, nobody will give you an account. You can't go and buy from the manufacturer. And you just, you've got to work a plan, and we bought it added on 10% and gave it to the customer. And from there we started buying, as soon as we made some money, we started buying stock. Now you see the formula is pumping the money back into the business. We didn't go out to buy some clothes or go for dinner, or we pumped money back into the business. And this is where 90% of people go wrong, especially my ladies. They start making money. Oh my God, they have their hair done. You see, they've got braids down to their feet. They've got these nails sticking out to here. They've got these false eyelashes to here. They've done themselves up, and they've got no money to pay their creditors at the end of the month. So, I always say, profit does not equal turnover. You have your turnover and you have your profit. You take 10% of your profit you can use, but the rest you've got to put back into the business for years, and not 5 minutes, for years and years and years. And we saw so many people who, we had a little guy called Billy Healy who started up next door to us in opposition, because you always said, when you're doing well, somebody says, start up in opposition right next door. And then we saw, oh my gosh, at the end of the month he had a brand new car. Wow. And the next month he bought a boat. And we would be working on the weekend. We'd see Billy Healy would go waving past us. Oh, we're going to the dam for the weekend with the kids. And we think, what are we doing wrong? But because it came to the month and he couldn't pay for all those things. And then that was the end of that, we just continued. And I've always been a serial saver. So, and I tell people, for every 100 Rand you earn, you save 10 Rand, you invest 10 Rand, and you give 10 Rand to charity. So that as you give, people say, I can't afford to give, Margaret. I can't even afford stuff for myself. As you give to others, you open yourself up to receive more. But if you've always got to give before you, and that's where most people go wrong. They think, oh, I'll just keep this all for myself. And one day when I've got enough, I'll just give some to somebody else. It doesn't work like that. You've got to, from day one, you've got to be able to give before you can receive.
So as that shop then later on, it was stocked up and it became your first flagship, first store.
Our first store was hardly a flagship, as big as your toilet. And so then our tipping point, we call it the tipping point. You've got to do something that's different and unique from everyone else. So one of the reps who came past said, we've got this new fandangled thing that's coming. Remember, this is now 1980. And it's called a microwave oven, and nobody knows what to do with it. And we put it there, and we didn't know what to do with it either. And then one weekend I took it home and I thought, well, I'll experiment in it. So I made a chicken, and instead of 2 hours in the oven, it took 20 minutes. I baked a cake, and instead of an hour or 40 minutes in the oven, it took 3 minutes. Amazing. So I called my neighbor. I said, come have a look at this. She said, Chief, that's a fantastic thing. I want one. So we got her one. Well, the truth is we actually did. She went and bought somebody else. But we put the seed in her head. So I thought, well, if it worked when I showed Charlene and she went and bought one from somebody else, why don't I get a few in? And I'll invite some ladies. So we invited some ladies into the shop. And it was so small, we had to put all the stuff on the pavement, put all the stuff that we had on the pavement. And in the shop on the counter, I put the microwave. I cooked chicken, I cooked a pineapple upside down cake, and I made some fudge in less than an hour. They ate all the stuff, loved it, and we sold 11 microwaves that day. So from that was the start, where we realized that you have to always give before you can receive. We gave the customers a demonstration. We showed them how the thing worked. We let them taste, the proof is in the pudding. We let them taste the food. You've got to go for all the senses. They saw the stuff. They smelt the food cooking. They tasted the food. This is wonderful. And then they went for it and they bought the microwaves. So that was the start of our whole setup. And that's where it started. And then from then, they'd say, well, I have a fridge, I have a stove, I'll have a washing machine. And in the old days, I used to go to the house and demonstrate them, because people don't know how to use them. You've got a washing machine with 18 programs, when you put it on 3 every day and let it go. Demonstrate it. And we did that for many years until it got a bit dangerous to do that. But
and I studied home economics, and those were the years also when all the different, there was a potato, what do you call it, the aardappelraad and the meat board, and all these various ones, and they all had home.
My friend Vanessa, who's still my friend today, she worked for me, and then she went to work for the pork board because they paid her more.
Exactly.
And they all had home economists, and we were all cooking and showing people how to cook. And
it was all about demonstrations.
Yes. So then, I told you that I believe in investing. So one of the things I invest in is property. And so I said, we're paying this rent every month to this person. We need a bigger space anyway. So the butchery down the road came up for sale. So it was on auction, because the butcher used to drink, and of course he lost all his money. So his shop came up for auction. So we went to look with no money. We went to the bank, and Mr. Alec Yule, who was the manager of the bank in those days, said, "Oh, okay, I'll give you 20,000 on loan. That's it. That's the note." So we went to the auction and we had to bid on this thing, and all we had was 20,000. Of course, we went for a hell of a lot more. We just kept bidding, and we didn't know how we were going to pay for it, but we got the damn building. We were bidding against a local lawyer who had pots of money. And we got the building, we moved in. So the butchery was underneath, and he had his flat on top. So we made our shop underneath, and I turned the top into a cookery school. That was my first cookery school. And I had 5 cookery schools, and I was doing about 24 lessons a week. I had 2 girls called Vanessa and Sharon who helped me. And and as I say, we're still friends to this day. And we started teaching people how to cook in the microwave. And that launch of microwaves in South Africa, we did it. And people would come from far and wide. And as I say, we used to have, when I moved into Broad Street, I had a cooking school up there. It was seated 50 people, and I'd have 50 people, 24 times a week to come and learn how to cook. So, yeah.
Okay, but I will get into the demonstrations a little bit later on for where you are in your bigger stores now. But I am always intrigued about the tipping point. So I also work with small business owners, and they get stuck in
before the tipping point.
Yeah, before the tipping point, or then they lose the business, or they just stuck in this wobble. What was your? How did you manage that first? The first next store, the second one, and the third one?
Okay, so we had that store, and then, in those days, town was town. You went to town, you went window shopping on a Saturday afternoon. So we needed to have a shop in town. So, it's all about location. So we found the store in 89 Broad Street, which is right between Western Smith Streets and Durban, which are the 2 busiest streets. It wasn't the busiest, which was Gardner, but it was one up, so it was close. And so we found the shop, and we decided to move into town. And it was a huge move for us because town was wow, and just, oh my goodness, we're coming from the suburbs into town. And so, we just decided, and then we plowed the money back until we had built up enough. And I just said, I'm not going to rent another shop. We're going to buy it. So then we had to take a bond, and we had a little bit to put down. We took a bond for the rest, and we paid that bond off as quick as we could. So we paid the first bond off. Then we had money. We could access that bond to pay for this, to get the second bond, and we paid that off as well. And we had to come up with innovative stuff. I mean, in those days, I remember we have a sale that went right through the night. You couldn't do it today, of course, but in those days, we had specials. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, we had a D5 automator, I remember, for 199 Rand, So we had specials right through the night. People were queuing up outside to come to the store. You had to make yourself well known. You had to give people would relate us to getting a really good price. We can go there and get a good bargain. We can get a good product, good price. So you have to have something that's going to draw people to you. You can't just say, here's my shop, I'm going to sit here and just hope everybody's going to come in. You have to market it. I always say marketing is the most important thing, because you can have the best product at the best price.
I agree.
But if nobody knows about it, it's like having a dinner party, cooking the dinner and not inviting the guests.
I agree.
Is the most important thing. You've got to be able to market yourself. You've got to do something unusual. Even today, with all my stores and that, what I do that's unusual, I have networking breakfasts, where I invite local business people in. My little shop in Constantia Village Mall, which is a tiny little shop. It's a Smeg store in Constantia Village Mall in Cape Town. To people, and I just invited, who do you invite? I invited all the other store owners in the shopping center to come in, and I did a cooking game. I'm vegan, so I cook vegan. So I said, what do you know about vegan food? I know nothing about vegan food. I don't even want vegan food. Well, come, let me show you. And we cooked, and my neighbor, Teresa, I got her involved. She's got a vegan restaurant, and we cooked up, and we invited the locals, and they all came, and it was wonderful, So you've got to do something different. You've got to do something to give back to people. You've got to make it exciting. And especially today, everybody's been locked up for 2 years. They just want to get out. They want to talk to people. They're nervous to come. I'm nervous to come, Margaret, but I'm coming anyway. So we started our networking breakfasts, where I invited businesswomen to come and network with each other, because your network is your net worth. That's where you're going to get it. You can pay 10,000 Rand to advertise in a magazine or online or something. But if you tell 10 people and they tell 10 people, every person knows about 250 people. And if you can get that person to go and tell their 250 people, and today, of course, it's all online, it's just so easy.
Even easier.
And they all come, and so we started networking breakfast. I started teaching domestic work because I've had my best success was with domestic workers. Amazing. Where I would take them out of the home and we start just teaching them how to, clean the vacuum cleaner, how to clean the fridge, how to clean the toaster. And then I started teaching them computer skills and how to drive a car. So my domestic workers were getting jobs as drivers. And my best success ever was when I worked with a lady called Rosemary, and she taught domestic workers to look after old people. And I had one lady where we quadrupled her salary. She was earning 3,000 Rand a month, and she got a job looking after an old person earning 3,000 Rand a week.
Wow.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
You just somebody to steer you in the right direction. She liked old people. She was good at working with people. So we did the course. Rosemary did the course in our store. We got a whole lot of domestic workers. And this particular one stayed in touch with me. They all went and they all got really good jobs afterwards. But this particular one stayed in touch, and she said, Margaret, I can't believe that I'm doing 4 times my salary now because I'm getting 3,000 Rand a week instead of 3,000 Rand a month.
Amazing. So is every store fitted with a demonstration kitchen?
So they all have places to have meetings. I've got very big demonstration kitchens now. In Centurion, I've got a cooking station, which takes, it's 8 cooking stations, so we can have 16 people cooking at once. So I have that. And in my Waterfall store in Midrand, I've got a big kitchen there where we can have a lot of people in. But we make space, we just move things around, and we have fashion shows, we have bridal shows, we have cooking shows, we have talent shows, we have everything in the store because we're in the people business. And I always say to people, whatever business you're in the people business. When people say to me, what do you do? I'm in the people business. I deal with people on a daily basis. Well, what sort of people do you deal with? Well, I deal with my staff, first of all. Happy staff make happy customers. I deal with my suppliers. I've got to be on the good side of my suppliers because they give me good deals. And I've got to be on the good side of my customers because they're the ones who pay my salary. So you're in the people business, no matter what business you're in, you just have to do that. But I think the other thing that a lot of people don't realize, and I work with people, nail technicians, painters, plumbers, all these guys, they're all good at their work, but are they good at business? How do you learn business? We had to learn on the ground. So I did everything back to front. So I learned how to do business first, and then I went to school, and I now have a master's in business administration.
Wonderful.
When I was 70, people say, what are you teaching there? What are you? No, I want to learn how they tell people to do it. And when you see how they tell people to run a business, you're not surprised that 97% fail, because what they teach in school is nothing like you would learn on the ground. And I say to people say, oh, will you fund me? I want to go to university for 3 years to become a this or a that. Well, are there jobs for these type of people? No, there's no jobs for them out there. The people
unfortunately.
Who particular position last year, have they got jobs? No. Well, why would you spend 3 or 4 years of your life learning to be something that you're never going to get a job as? Get a job, fund. If you want to study, whatever you want to study, fund yourself, but work during the day, because you'll learn so much more on the ground working than you'll ever learn in Harvard Business School.
Yeah. Before we get to the MBA story, I want to ask you about your and Alan's partnership and your skill set. Obviously, something just clicked there, and to bring about this whole business.
Yeah. I've got a lovely picture in Alan's office, and there's a statue called the Thinker, and I don't know if you've seen it. It's a man who's sitting.
I know him. Yes.
On his chin, and he's leaning on. So we've got, and it's a statue, and it's on a pedestal, and there's the Thinker, and then there's another pedestal where the person's gone. You see the little footprints running out. So Alan's the thinker, and I'm the doer. He has the ideas, and I put them into action. And that's our partnership team. And even in our jobs, we split our jobs. He does the buying and the marketing, and I do the operations and all on the ground stuff, and work with the staff and work with the customers. So we have very specific roles. In the beginning, it wasn't easy because he thought he was the boss. And he fired me a few times, but I'd be fired on the Monday and come back to work I'd be fired on the Friday, come back to work on the Monday. But we have very specific roles, and we work very well together. It didn't happen overnight as well. It took a while to actually find our niche. I'm good at this, you're good at that. Don't interfere in what I'm doing. I won't interfere with what you're doing. And we have that partnership. We look after each other extremely well. We're very critical of each other, which I think is really, really important. Be critical of each other, and not in a horrible way. Oh God, you did this wrong. But, if I had done this, this is the way I would have done it. And we found that it worked over the years, and now we work very well as a team. In fact, I'm helping a friend in a dress shop over here in America, and she said, I can't believe how well you work as a team. I mean, my husband working in a dress shop, but his thinking is so different that, we're working together, and we're literally turning this whole shop around.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's just incredible. So yeah, and also business is business. And an old friend said to me, and you'll know them, and it's Hilton Rabinowitz's parents who are my age, and they used to have a restaurant called the Hacienda in Durban, and it was a fabulous restaurant. It was like the best restaurant in Durban in the 70s, and they sold it, and they started a company called Natal Wholesale Jewelers. And I said, I said to his dad, how could you swap from a restaurant to a jeweler? It's so different. He said, Margaret, business is business. If you're good at business, it doesn't matter what you do. So a lot of people are good at what they do, but they're not good at business. And this is where I think I come in. I'll go into them and I'll give them practical things. You're doing this. I know it said at business school, you've got to do this, but this is never going to work, and this is the way to do it practically. So I'm very practical, and I'm very straightforward. You see a lot of people, pussyfoot around, beat around the bush, won't tell you straight. This is never going to work. You've got to do something very different if you want to make it. Oh, you're never going to make money out of this. Do the sums. People don't do their sums. If you do the sums, what do you need to do to make the amount of money you want? Okay, so you want to take home 100,000 Rand a month. What must your turnover be? And what must your profit be for you to be able to earn that? They don't think about that. They just think, I'll just churn it out and it'll work.
It's a matter of put up the goal and then work backwards and see where the financial part, it's business people or startups shy away from that aspect because it's daunting. I don't want to hear about it. I'm driven. I know what to do. A lot of people are very operational. They know what to do on a day-to-day basis, but the marketing and financial side kind of get neglected, and then you fall into a trap. So tell us about your MBA journey. We've got this same in common. I was the oldest in my class. I was 45.
Oh, right. Okay.
So you beat me to it, but it was the most amazing part of ever my studies and everything. So tell me about yours.
So I always wanted to go to university, and of course I couldn't. And, you put it off and you put it off and you put it off. And then I was 60 and I thought, you know what, I really want to go to university. So then I wanted my MBA. So I had a friend whose wife had an MBA. I said, give me her certificate. So I took her certificate and I photocopied it, and I took her name out and I wrote my name there and I put it on my wall. That was part of my vision board. So what does an MBA look like? This is what it looks like. That's what I'm working for. And then I went backwards. Well, to get that, I would have to have an honors degree. And to get that, I'd have to have a business degree. And to get a business degree, I would have to have matric maths, which I didn't have, because remember, I told you I did shorthand time. So I went back to school. I found a teacher who did extra maths at Red Hill High School in Joburg. And I would go at 5 o'clock on a Friday when nobody wants to be working, and I would go and do extra maths lessons. And we were going along swimmingly until he got a job in America and left me in a lurch in the middle of my whole fiddle. But anyway, I carried on and I got through that. And then I enrolled at Regent Business School for a business degree. I did a couple of UNISA degrees first. And I realized that, UNISA works for some people, it didn't work for me. But I went to Regent, and they're much more personal and they're much more helpful. And, they took my age into account, not in a way that they sort of helped me in that way, but they would just know that, my handwriting was terrible. So they let me type my exams. And I think they let me type because I couldn't read my handwriting. And so they would help in little ways like that. That made a huge, huge difference. I really battled to write my exam in a hall where the students were eating and drinking and sopping and going to the toilet. So they let me write my exam in a small room next to the exam hall. So they helped me in a little way. Made a huge difference to me. And so I got through my business degree, and then I did my postgrad, and then I did my master's. So it took me 10 years from start to finish. But what the hell else was I going to do with those 10 years anyway?
Amazing.
There's a hell of a lot to do. So, most people do, they get bored or sit and watch days of other people's lives, or sit in a caravan on the beach or something. I don't want to do that. So, but getting my MBA, I could take the good bits out. There's a lot of good bits there, and leave the other bits out. And I tell myself, this is what they teach you at school, but this in practice, this doesn't work. So don't do it, And some people help a lot of entrepreneurs like that. And of course, my big thing was I started my entrepreneurs breakfast. So and that was my friend Glenda. She set it up. And I work with a girl called Marlene from Action Coach. So she's a business coach.
Okay.
And we started teaching businesses because we saw these businesses coming up and they were doing so well and they would just go down. So we started helping them over those hurdles because it's literally like hurdles. I said it's like a race with those hurdles in the way. There's always a hurdle. And sometimes you knock over the hurdle and sometimes you jump over the hurdle. We help to help you jump over those hurdles and get to the next level. And so we started an Entrepreneurs Club, which we started in Schlonga 4 years ago with about, I think we had about 10 or 15 people. And now we do it online. We have thousands of people.
Amazing.
And we teach them and we teach them about business. And we have like this week, so it's on Friday at 11 o'clock, every Friday, 11 o'clock, the Entrepreneurs Club. And and I've got the guy who started King Price. He started King Price from nothing. And now it's one of the biggest insurance companies, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had a guy a young boy who's a friend of Glenda's sons, who started a business and sold it for R1 billion a couple of years later. You know, so people, there's a lot of success stories, but they're few and far between. But these guys work. They don't sit in their jacks and just it doesn't happen. They work their bums off to get to where they're going to be. But the nice thing about it is they're also ready to help and to give back. So yeah, every Friday, 11 o'clock, anybody can tune in on my live on Facebook and watch people who have been successful teaching you how to be successful.
Amazing. So I'm a strategic consultant, also a small business, and I'm always curious about strategic planning in businesses. Is it important for your business? How do you manage it? Do you follow a specific process, or how often do you say, this is our strategy, and can tick a box that you have either executed or must revisit it?
I would literally do it every single day. Every single day. So we start with the end of the month. So we do our 20-year plan, our 10-year plan, our 5-year plan, our 1-year plan, our 1-month plan, and then our daily plan. So we literally do it every single day. You can't leave anything to chance.
You can't.
So every single day we know what we're aiming at. We know what our figures have to be. And I always say the very simple, to small businesses, the very simple way is to look in your bank. If you've got money in the bank, you're doing okay. If you've got no money in the bank, you are doing badly. You better get out and work a bit harder. And I always say, God gives you everything that you need. You know, look at the birds. There's not a hungry bird out there. There's not a bird out there saying, oh, I'm so hungry. You're getting me some food. God gives them the food, but what are those birds doing from early in the morning till late at night? They're scratching, looking for those seeds all the time. And that's how you have to be, from early in the morning till late at night. I get up every morning and I've got to sleep at midnight, if not later. So I'm hustling all day, every day to have what I have and to maintain what I have, because a lot of people think, oh, I've done well now, I'm just going to sit back. And, you know, it's just going to carry on running. And it doesn't. Shock the next day. And, of course, we have the things like COVID thrown at us. What have I had in this last year? I've had COVID. Not myself, but my staff have had COVID. We've had the looting. My shop was looted. We lost 46 million.
Yes, I saw that. Terrible.
We've had riots. We've had staff not being able to get to work. We've had the floods now. You know, I mean, God throws these things at you all the time. He puts these bumps in the road, but he does it to see how resilient you are, because this is a journey. It's not a destination. You don't say, oh, I've arrived now. You know? So yeah, every day, every day I'm growing. Every day we're trying different things, different ways of marketing. So literally our strategy is, there again, work from the end backwards and right down to today. If you tell me, I guess to within a couple of $100,000, what my turnover is every single day. And my turnover is high. You've got to know that. So, you know,
and do you communicate that with your salespeople on the floor? Do they have targets? Do they more or less know where it's going to?
Yes. I mean, you can't hit a target you can't see. You have to know what you're aiming at. So every single staff member has a target, which is, there again, monthly and down to daily. And this is your target for today, you know. And then we look at it and we say, what happened to you today? You know, when I had a bad day, you know, when my mother got sick, I was thinking about that and I didn't write business. Well, listen, you know, you better, tomorrow would be your day off, but if you are not on target, you better come in tomorrow and just do a bit of business. And when you hit your target, you can go home. That's fine. Absolutely wonderful. But if you're down on target, you can't take your day off and your weekend off and go park off at home and you're down on target. You must come in and get up to target. You know, it's no shame, you know, no, go home and sit at home, you're miserable. No, come to work and be happy.
Yeah. And do they work on a commission structure as well?
Every single person is incentivized. We have to say, staff work for incentives and incentives work for staff. you can't have a person who comes to work. Like, why do you think Department of Home Affairs is such a shit place to go? Because when you go there, no matter how many people they see, they still get their same money every month. This is how much money I'm getting. If I see 10 people, I'll get this much money. If I see 100 people, I'll get this much money. How many people do you think they want to see? That's why they close the window. Oh, go away. I'm just not even going to talk to you because, I still get the same money.
Yeah.
So all of our staff are incentivized. Everybody's incentivized. From the cashiers, they're incentivized to balance their tills every day. I incentivize my staff to even come to work every day. So if you come to work every single day on time, and you're there and you're present and you're working, you get a 500 Rand pick and pay voucher on the 15th of the month. Because I found that by the 15th of the month, a lot of the staff was short of food. And they've all got half a dozen children. So they were short of food. And so I said, well, and I was battling because they were coming late, they weren't coming, they're calling sick, all this type of thing. So you have to come to work every day. So if you call in sick, you don't get your voucher. If you come to work late, you don't get your voucher. So the day that you be lying, oh shit, I don't feel like it's raining. I don't think I'm going to go to work today. Well, if I don't go to work, I'm going to lose my 500 voucher. Oops, I better get up and go. You see, so incentivize them to come. So everybody's incentivized. The sales staff are incentivized. The drivers are incentivized. If you do all your deliveries and I don't get any complaints, this is what I'll give you. So yes, we incentivize every inch of the way, because if they're doing well, we're doing well, and I don't do well and get money for myself. What am I going to do with it? So we give it back to them, and our staff are very well paid and very well looked after.
And how do you do your cross checks? Do you have a system, or is it the immediate line manager that looks after that?
I always say I should have been a policeman because I check on everything. I'm a serial checker. I check up on everything. And I irritate people because if I give you something to do, I'll ask you if you've done it. And I'll keep asking you until you have done it. I have tick sheets. I'm a list maker. I tick boxes. And of course, I work with a team. So we do, but we have auditors, we have forensic auditors. In our business, we deal with high-price items that people love to pinch. And they always come and think they invented the wheel when they put, a 50,000 Rand cell phone in their pocket and think we're not going to find it. And of course we do. But, we check everything. We have, we carry a huge amount of stock, millions and millions of rands. So we check our stock every day. Our stock is checked. When you walk into our store, you see how many thousands of items. But when you break it, everything you break down into small pieces. So if you walk into our shop, this section of the shop is managed by this person. And when this person's on day off, that person goes there and they check it, double check, and they check on each other. If I lose something in the store, I know within half an hour. Within half an hour, I'll know this is gone. And then we run the cameras back. So we have very few shoplifters. But we do have the odd shoplifter. And oh my gosh, this is gone. It was here just now. Now it's not. And I know I didn't sell it. We run the cameras back and you see exactly what's happened. And then we know who the shoplifters are. And then we target them and then we just get them out. So we don't have to mitigate. So, we do it. Of course, the new staff, the old staff know that I catch them, but the new staff, they think they've invented the wheel when they've just helped themselves to something and think I'll never find out,
Yeah.
And with the cashier, I said to the cashier, I've done every job. So if a cashier decides she's going to start pinching, I know the format because I pinched out of the till. I was there, so it was my own till, so it was okay. But I know how I did it, and I know how I got around it. So I catch them all the time. Oh, I'm a serial checker. I check up on everything. And for those you least expect, who actually are the bad guys.
Yeah.
The ones
are you a hard boss to work for?
I used to be very, very tough. I've softened a lot now that I'm older, and my son is much softer than me. My son and my daughter run my business now, so they're much softer than me. But I used to be a hard taskmaster, and I did. But you know what? All the people that I've been with, and I'll just give you, for instance, Jerome, when he came, he's my manager of Four Ways, which is my flagship store. When he came to me, he said, "Oh my God, I'll tell you." He came for his interview, and I was so busy on the floor that he came. He sat in front of me, and 2 hours later, he thought I can't sit chat anymore. He had to go to the toilet. So he got up and he just started working. And 2 weeks later, I said to him, "Who the hell are you?" He said, "Well, my name's Jerome. I came 2 weeks ago for you to interview me, but you've been so busy that you didn't interview me, but I've been working here for 2 weeks and I'm actually doing quite well now."
I love that story.
And I'm very decisive with people. So when Amar came for his interview, he came and he sat with me and I interviewed him and I gave him a couple of chores to do. And I just said to him, "You know what? You're slow, you're slothful, you're never going to work with me. I think you must go home." So I said, "Oh my God." He said, "Well, I live in Stanger and I got a lift with somebody here. Can I just be here for the day because I can't get home?" So I said, "Oh God, well, I don't even want to see you because you're irritating me. Go and work in the warehouse And I've got cameras, of course, in the warehouse. So he didn't know I was watching him, but he works and he stacked the boxes and he did everything. You know, he didn't have to be asked, he did things. So when he came to say goodbye to me at the end, I said, I was actually watching you, and you actually are quite a hard worker. I don't know what the hell went wrong in the store, but you can come back tomorrow. And today he's one of my top managers.
Amazing.
And he on Tonga branch, and he does incredibly well.
Yeah.
But I also encourage my staff to have an interest out of work. And I think that's very important. I'll give you, for instance, with Amar, he started a furniture factory, and he has this interest, which is run by one of his relatives, but he has a furniture factory. He works at Hirsch's, and we work hard. We're 7-day-a-week store, but he has a furniture factory as well. And if I need furniture, like I need a cash desk or a stand or something, he does it for me. And so I feed him with two hands. So all my staff, even my cashiers, they all either Herbalife, Tupperware, Average Lane, they all got a sidekick.
That's good.
Job that on the side, because you have to have an interest out of work. You can't just, oh gosh, I'm so bored, I'm going home, I'm sitting like a couch potato and going to sleep and getting up the next day. Life's too short for that.
But I also believe you have more than one skill. So obviously this brings the bacon, the main income, but there's enough time to develop the other skill or use it for something else. I always tell my children that their generation is going to have more than one business, more than one income stream. One will be obviously something that you've trained on. The other one will just be a hobby or something like that. My youngest son is a drummer, but he's also an industrial psychologist. So over the weekends, he's doing drumming. During the week, he's an industrial psychologist, and that's the way life works.
Yeah, and it's good to have the diversified interest, and you meet different people. You have, and life is exciting. It's not boring. If you say to me, "What's the worst thing you can think of?" is having a boring life. I mean, that must be
Absolutely.
terrible.
And I think you're a more interesting people if you have different people around you that you get to. Okay, so you mentioned live streaming every day, and you obviously utilize you're not a baby boomer per definition. Can I state that?
Yes.
You embrace the digital space for marketing purposes. What excites you about it, and what platforms do you? I see a lot of Facebook live streaming, but what else do you do?
Oh, everything. I mean, I'm working with the Mrs. South Africa's, which is my absolute joy at the moment. They are wonderful to work with. I don't know if you know how Mrs. South Africa works. You get thousands of applications. They 100 finalists, and then we work with them. And then next month we whittle them down to 25 finalists, and those 25 go through to the finals. So it's been such a joy working with them. They're absolutely fabulous. I love the girls. They're all brilliant. They're beautiful inside and out. They're just lovely to work with. So I work a lot with them. My friend Kerry Dell, and this is the beauty of Zoom, she immigrated to New Zealand, and she's a coach, and she's training the girls, and we're all doing her course, which was fabulous. It's a 16-week course. So I continue to do the course. So yeah, I do a lot. So obviously on Facebook, I'm nearly 200,000 followers on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. And then I live stream a lot of different things, not only for myself. I work, which is International Women Entrepreneurs Association Foundation or something. I work for 101 different other companies. I work with Melanie Hawken of Lionesses of Africa. I love Melanie, and she does amazing things. So yeah, it's all about collaboration at the end of the day. No man is an island. You can't do anything by yourself. You've got to go and collaborate with other people. And I started lots of groups. They say, if you're the cleverest person in your group, start another group. So I did. And I chose people that I liked and that would join me in the group. And we started the WOW group with 6 women. And today we've got 2,000 women on a box, So, and then of course with COVID, everything went down, and now we started to pick it up again. And just when we started picking it up, the second wave of COVID came, or the third wave, and then the fourth wave. So we're now in the 5th wave of COVID. But we still restart. We've got our networking breakfast in Waterfall on the 30th of June, and in Cape Town in July. I can't remember the date. So we're starting our networking breakfasts again, just so we can get women to come in, because women like to talk, and they like to talk to each other, and they like to hear what each other's got to say and feed off each other's energy. And human beings need human beings. Although COVID tried to lock us up and did their best to break us, we had to just going,
Yeah, and so everybody's got a story to tell and needs some time and space that people can listen to your story and share it with the world. So let's play a little bit of what if. If you haven't ended up running this business, what would have you been doing?
Well, my second business, and you've got to understand that I run about 16 businesses in 10 countries, so I have a lot of businesses. But my absolute love is property. So I have a very big property business in the States and in South Africa. And I love property, and I think you'll never lose money on property. You've got to be on top of it all the time. The reason I'm in the States at the moment is the guy who was running my business, was running it into the ground, so I had to come and pick it up, sort it out, and I'm coming back to South Africa next week. So yeah, I love property. I would definitely have been the top estate agent in the world. My dream is to be like Dean Graziosi, who was one of the top estate agents in America. And so yeah, I follow people like Natie Klein, who was chucked out of South Africa, came to America and started a food business that he supplies all the restaurants here, and he's a multi-billionaire in dollars today. You know, amazing. So people are doing amazing things in their lives, you know, and there's so much out there. So, but I love it. At the moment, I told you I'm working in a dress shop with my friend, and I love that she does beautiful dresses. Her dresses range between $300 and $1,000, so that's 17,000 Rand for a dress. You know, and people pay it all the time. They don't even flinch. So yeah, I love fashion and I love clothes, and I don't think there's much money in fashion, but I would definitely made my most money out of property.
I can see that you will be an excellent estate agent.
Yeah, I love it. I love decor. Staging, you know, my friend Elle in Cape Town does house staging, where we go into a scruffy, grotty house and she just moves stuff around, and in 5 minutes it looks like it's in a magazine, you know. So you know, you can, and my friend Yale is one of the top estate agents in South Africa, if not the top estate agent. She sells franchises of estate agencies, and she's just amazing, and she's a lovely person as well. So yeah, you meet some lovely people on the way.
Yeah, property for me is that potential. You walk into a space and you can imagine the potential. This can be this and that can be that. And yeah, I would also love that. So we are coming close to an end, and I want to ask you the final one. Obviously, you are big in business. We all look up to you and Alan. And we are so grateful to have you South Africans around. My second last question is, how do you see the future of South Africa?
South Africa is a brilliant, brilliant country. It's got so much potential and it's got so much of everything. And, you know, it's the entrepreneurs of the country that kept it afloat through COVID, through the riots, through the floods, through everything. The entrepreneurs kept that country afloat. The government will always be pinching money. They will always, I'm in the States, and my friend is just
it's also happening.
And it's a mess here. It's a mess in England. It's never going to be fantastic. But what keeps the business going? The businesses, the small businesses, the entrepreneurs, they kept the country afloat in South Africa. Make no mistake. We were the ones who kept the country going while the whole government was messing around and didn't know what the hell was going on. So yeah, I see a great future for entrepreneurs and for South Africa. And you know, when we had the looting and the riots, I said to both my children, do you want to this country? And they both said definitely not, we're staying.
Okay, so I tell a lot of my friends are retiring at this stage, and some of them say, I don't know, you know, it's this empty nest and all of that, new smaller spaces, and I tell them, start a business, start something new.
Because what's your alternative? Your alternative has been that old park, walking around, leaning on the trolley at Pick and Pay, going round and round, up and down the aisles, buying one piece of this and one slice of bread and that. It's just horrible. You don't want to do that.
No,
Start a business. There's so much you can do. And, you know, at this age, you've got your expertise, you've got all the knowledge. Sometimes you get a bit lazy. I'm tired of working. No, you can't be tired. The birds are not tired of getting the seed, and you know, God didn't throw the seed in the nest for them. You out there, and you've got to make a go of it and give it a shot. And you know, today we're going to live longer. In the old days, it says in the Bible, you'll die with 60 years and 10. So in the old days, you would get to 60, 70, you go live with your kids. Do you think my fancy daughter-in-law wants me living with her? Not a job, way. She's got a beautiful home, she's got a beautiful life, and the last me hanging around, and I don't want to be hanging around her either. Let me tell you something. I look at my mother, who's now 97, and still, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and full of the joys of spring every
Amazing.
single day. And we're going to live to over 100. So you
Yeah,
can't say I'm retiring at 60.
sure.
Bullshit. You've got another 40 odd years to go. What are you going to do with that time? And
Yeah,
that's
you
what
can't
we're
sit
doing.
around, you can't hang around, you can't. Obviously, you will still want to read and maybe live a little bit slower, but because we are wiser,
I
but
want to
not
say,
necessarily.
faster. The older I get, the faster I get, because if you don't speed up, you can slow down to a stop, and that's your
Yeah.
alternative. So
Yeah.
there's so many businesses out there. There's so much you can do, and so much you can, and you've got to make that money to sustain yourself, because with
Yeah.
inflation, when I think back, when I started work for 50 Rand a month. My boss was earning 500 Rand a month. He was the top lawyer in Pietermaritzburg. My mentor, Bob Rickards, was earning at that same stage 4,000 Rand a month. So he was incredibly wealthy. But when he died 30, 40 years later, he was still only earning 4,000 Rand a month.
Yeah.
And it was hard to
Same.
So you've got to do something that's going to keep up with inflation. That's why the property, because your rentals will always keep up with inflation. And you've got to do something that's going to keep you busy, because the stats are, if you retire in 3 years, you die. And I'm too young to die. I want to keep going for a bit longer and enjoy my life. So,
please do that. Please do that. So who do you look up to or consider a mentor in the business world?
Well, at my stage, a lot of people died. So, my mentor was Bob Rickards. He came to visit us for a weekend and stayed for 30 years and taught me everything I know. So I was very, very happy to have him in my life. And my husband, of course, is such a good, solid, honest person. I really look on. He has very good values in life, and he's taught me a lot, let me tell you. And I've taught him a lot too, but he's taught me a lot. So I was trained by Tony Robbins. Alan gave me a course with Tony for my 50th birthday. So Tony Robbins trained me. His disciple is Dean Graziosi, who I work with at the moment. But there's so many people like Grant Cardone, Vishen Lakhani. There's all these great guys doing amazing things that are there to teach you the things that you can't learn in Harvard Business School. So I have a lot of them. I love May Musk. I think May has been amazing to bring up those 3 amazing children and still be at 70. Yeah. She's older than me. She's 3 on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 73. I think that is incredible. So yeah, there's a lot of fantastic people doing fabulous things, and we can just emulate all of them.
Yeah, I had a personal encounter with May. So I was a student, second year student in 1982, more or less, and she was studying and working in Bloemfontein.
Oh, really?
And I didn't realize up until Elon became famous, and I see this lady and I think somewhere in my life I've bumped into you. What's happening? And when I got onto Google, obviously, I see her younger images and I realized I visited her house in Bloemfontein as a student. Amazing. Yeah, there's stories to tell, hey?
Always.
Look up to her. Margaret, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I think we still have so much to chat about, and I want to get your insight about a few other business topics. So I would love to invite you back onto my podcast, which is still small and growing. But thank you so much. And you must enjoy the time in America, and hopefully we will chat soon again.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so happy. And yeah, lots of luck going forward. I'm sure you're starting as a small business, but I know you'll grow to a big business.
Thank you so much.